enough. No, more.
Now, Andy, we've discussed this topic of vulnerability management many times before on this show, so I'm going to set it up a little differently than we usually do. Steve Zalewski, who is my co-host over on Defense in Depth, said, quote, "No one is happy with their patch management solution." Now, would you agree with that assessment? And why do you believe the constant frustration of what would make them actually happy about how their vulnerabilities are managed?
So I do, in general, agree. And I think that there's a big challenge here, which is many organizations don't actually understand why they're doing patch management. In fact, I would actually argue that patch management is the wrong way to think about it. Mostly, this is about a maintenance problem. And companies love deferring maintenance. Right? They're like, oh, look, we can just take this log4j thing and throw it here and it does our logging and we don't ever have to worry about it again. And I think open source enables this. I don't want to say it's to blame for it, but it enables it because you're like, oh, I don't have to do any work. I found the code, I integrated it once and I walked away. And so because they don't think about it as a maintenance problem, that we just have to routinely invest in maintenance. And every so often, I've got to patch out a cycle because I have to do something for a 0 day. Like that should be the way people approach it. Instead, they approach all patch management as an incident, and you cannot operate at incident tempo doing basic maintenance. It would be like saying, what if you only filled the gas tank on your car whenever it ran out of gas? Like that would be an awful way. And then anybody who has an electric vehicle, fine, plug it in whenever it ran out of charge. Like this is not how you operate a vehicle. You like every so often you plug it in, you give it basic maintenance, you fill the windshield wiper fluid. You don't wait for these things to fail and the car to be broken down on the side of the road. But if you do, you're going to not really like your process. And that's how most people deal with patch management.
All right. Ed, I would assume you'd argue that your customers do like their patch management. They're not dissatisfied.
So actually, I am not in disagreement with Steve on this one. Caveat, Kenna doesn't actually do patch management. In fact, if we looked at the data, and if people are expecting patch management to effectively mean that they are going to patch all their vulnerabilities, then nobody is happy with their patch management solution because nobody is patching all of their vulnerabilities. I would also say it depends, right? So for patch management, we see people are really good where they have automated patch management, like the common example, everybody's using like Microsoft SCCM or something like that, and they do a good job at patching their Microsoft vulnerabilities after Patch Tuesday. It's consistent, there's a process around it. But as you get further away from the OS, the more difficult it becomes. And when you expect somebody to run a patch management system to, say, upgrade Java, it's not going to happen, right? There's a lot more complexity to it. There's regression testing that has a recompile apps. There's all kinds of things that have to happen that make it much, much harder to do. It's not just push a button and you're patched. In fact, even when we look at the mean time to remediate for these vulnerabilities, the long pole in the tent isn't actually applying the patch. It's all the process that they go through to get to pushing that button to push the patch out. So if people are expecting a patch management solution means that I'm suddenly patching all of my issues, then no one's really going to be happy with that.
So speaking to what Kenna Security does, and my apologies for confusing patch management with vulnerability management here, because you guys very much, kind of the way you've made your mark is to say that Kenna Security is all about the risk that's needed to address a vulnerability. And one of the things that you've said previously on our shows is you can ignore 60% of your vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the area that we focus in on is kind of prioritization and understanding the risk of particular vulnerabilities, particular groups of assets, all of these things. It's all asset-based risk model. And really, our position is you don't have to patch everything is the core message. But if you want to patch, right, here's the prescribed order of things that you should do them in so that you're reducing the risk the most with the least amount of effort. And by all means, we would love for you to get down to 0, but we also recognize reality that that's not going to happen.
Right. It's kind of like a diminishing rate of return here.
There absolutely is. At some point, you get to a point where you could probably do a better job with your security program, applying those resources to somewhere else than patching that really low risk vuln. There's probably some other strategic security initiative that you have going on that you could apply those resources to and get a lot more bang for it.
And is that understood when someone's using your platform?
Absolutely. In fact, it's kind of built into what we have this thing called top fixes, which is basically so whenever you're looking at any particular group of assets, we're going to give you that prescribed bang for your buck list and say, hey, if you're going to do something, do these 5 things or whatever. And here's what your risk is now. And here's what it'll be at the end of it. And we'll tie that into ticketing.
And tying this back to Ross Young's chart that he made earlier, because his whole thing was to try to show that we're being more sort of risk averse and that risk is being controlled and managed and gone down. How does that tie into telling a CISO, hey, things are improving risk-wise here?
Yeah, that's exactly what you wanted. That's the story that you want to tell, right? Here was my risk last quarter. Here's what we look like now. Here's where we're going. And here's the resources that it's going to take to get there. Do we all agree that it's worth getting there with these amount of resources? And that's what you want to measure. It's not about aging vulnerabilities. It's not about defect density, because in reality, when we look at it, on average, any given company at any given size, whether it's an SMB up to the Fortune 10, on average, they're fixing about 15% of their vulnerabilities, and the top performers are probably less than 30%. So if you're measuring defect density, the answer is it's always going to get worse.
So no one's going to be happy about that. Well, that's a really, really good point. Thank you.